Afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Wednesday, November 1st, 2023 Finance Audit and Budget Committee to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to adopt.
Agenda.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Nard. Seeing no changes to the agenda, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
The next item is approval of minutes dated October 26, 2023. Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Van Sickle. Any corrections to the minutes, Commissioners? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
And next is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on an item which is on today's agenda. There will also be a second opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak on any issue. Would anyone from the public like to speak under public participation, agenda items only?
Dr. Donnie Boyer, Shelby Township. I'd just like to comment and congratulate the Board of Commissioners for 30 years ago, Judge Bruff and I submitted a grant application in cooperation with the Sheriff's Department to begin a community corrections program. I can't believe it was 30 years ago, and I wish Judge Bruff was here today to also share the good news with you. The outstanding cooperation between the Sheriff's Department and Barb Caskey in particular over the last 30 years has been phenomenal in terms of diverting nonviolent criminal offenders from the criminal justice system. The Sheriff's Department as a whole, working in conjunction with her and her staff, has just been outstanding, not only to reduce the amount of criminality in Macomb County, but also to reduce the cost. We're all concerned about budget and funding, but we're also concerned about public safety and saving lives and rehabilitating offenders. I can tell you from personal experience, the work that they have done over the last 30 years has been phenomenal. I just felt the need to share that with you. If Judge Bruff wasn't in heaven, I'm sure he would be here to tell you that as well. We were very thankful to the Board of Commissioners for having the opportunity to have a community corrections program as we do, as well as the Sheriff's Department and the phenomenal success that we've had over the years. It really has saved the lives of thousands of people, as well as making the public safer than it was before. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak? Once, twice. We'll close public participation. Next is budget reviews. We've got a handful of budgets here today. I'll take a motion to receive and file 6A through 6D.
So move, Wallace.
Board Hall. Moved by Commissioner Wallace, supported by Commissioner Hall. And we are going to start off today with community corrections. We got Barb here. Commissioners, we have budget pages D1, 2, 10, 28, and 29. And then also we have 3 items on the capital improvement plan related to community corrections as well. So we'll get to those after we get through the operating side. Afternoon, Barb.
Good afternoon. With both of our MDOC grant and our general fund, we had an increase of about 7%. That is entirely attributed to personnel costs, both in the increases we'll see in January and any benefits increases. So it looks very similar to what that did last year. For the opioid settlement fund, I know that that's a newer fund that we're getting used to sort of seeing. There is over $5 million in that fund because of the prepaid payments that have been made by the distributors and Janssen settlements. And we are expecting additional payments from some of the smaller settlements in the coming year, as well as signing on to some of those that we have not signed on to yet. We have programming has been started in a lot of the areas that we brought to you in June, and planning for additional services to fill some gaps in the coming year. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Questions? Everyone's still diligently looking at their books. Well, why don't we start on D1, Commissioners? Are there any questions on D1? Okay, move to D2. So primarily this budget, Barb, is the tether program,
Yes, correct.
primarily.
And that's personnel to enroll and monitor individuals on electronic monitoring while they're in the community as a condition of bond.
Okay. Seeing no questions on D2, move on to D10. Any questions on the opioid settlement fund?
Sure.
Commissioner Walls?
Hi.
Hi.
You said that some of the programs have started.
Yes.
Which programs have started already?
The full expansion of the medication assisted treatment program in the jail. And then we've also had expansion of capacity for residential treatment and transitional housing services for those that were previously ineligible
Okay.
for diversion. And then there are several that are sort of halfway through into
Yeah.
implementation. And we'll be moving probably on those pretty quickly after the first of the year. Those should be implemented, like the CIT training, some of the other programming, like full implementation of reentry case management and pretrial services.
Okay. That's great news. I know a lot of times it's such a big process to even get started. So I'm happy to hear that you guys have ran with it. That's really good. Thank you.
Barb, really quick, sorry, going back to D1, flipping back here, because I'm looking at grants in general between the next item. This is a grant special revenue fund, but the vast majority of the revenue that's coming into this fund is from the general fund. Is that, I mean, historically, I'm just looking at revenue here. We've had 13,000 in 21 and then 52,000 this year. Is that just kind of what will be happening consistently with this fund? Is it just going to be general fund dollars?
That's what I understand, yes. We don't foresee any changes with that.
Okay, so then this year you're looking to get obviously more intergovernmental. So are we generating any income as a true grant in this fund?
Not in this fund. In our MDOC fund, which is the one that is on pages D28 and D29, that's where that fund is. But not within this one.
Not within this one. Got it. And that fund is primarily for tethers, like you said. So
Yes.
it's a tether program that we're funding 100%.
Correct.
From general fund dollars.
There is a portion of the electronic monitoring fees that is funded in the MDOC grant as well. But the personnel are funded within this one.
Is that consistent with other counties and how they handle their tether programs?
It varies across the state. Some are paid for 100% by the county and some it's a split like ours. In Wayne County, I know community corrections funding, the primary purpose of that, as I understand it, is for electronic monitoring. So it's a much larger number in terms of the staff and the costs that are attributed.
Commissioners, any questions on page D28?
Joe, I can help with that as well. Wayne County uses tethers much more than Macomb County does as well. Their program, I think, was close to $2 million.
Okay. Commissioner Brown?
On the question of tethers, how often do we go out for bids for those tether services?
Every 3 years, we go out for bid, and last time we had about 7 different responses, and we have contracts. We have a contract with one primary, and then we use one in addition to that. For geographically, we have some issues that for people that are out of county that need to be hooked up, after they've been released from the jail, but there's one primary.
We have to have good signals across the county where these tethers are, right? Is that the part of the problem?
It's just really getting the equipment placed on them and where they can go if they live, an hour away. they wouldn't be able to quickly make it to the monitoring agency to get equipment fixed or a new monitoring device attached if something happened to the one that they had on.
I was gonna say, 'cause we've spent a lot of money upgrading the frequencies around the county to make sure that we get signals everywhere, so,
Yeah, I'm sure that's assisted with that.
yeah, okay. Seems to be a push more towards tethers and rest for incarceration. It's one of the reasons our youth home is not as crowded and among other places. That trend's gonna probably continue, right? The monitoring is always a question. People say, well, they got a tether, but that doesn't necessarily prevent them from going out and committing a crime or wandering off. How quick do we get response times? I'm getting off the budget, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, maybe I'm getting off the subject, but anyway, just wanted, well, since you're here, it's a good opportunity to ask you a question. So how is the response times to track if there's violations of the tether program? I know certain people have been supposed to be, under house arrest and they're seeing other places and wondering how that happens if they're supposedly under a tether.
They, in terms of if they are violating like an exclusion zone, for example, if they have, if there's a victim in the case and they're not supposed to be within so many feet of them, if something like that happens and law enforcement is aware of that, they contact their local law enforcement wherever that's happening and have them dispatch right away like they would anywhere else. In terms of violations for things like allowing the battery to die, things like that, we address those as they come in so that if it comes in that business day, we let the court know that day. If we get something overnight that isn't as serious as, again, violating a victim zone, then we let them know the next day.
They go out beyond a range, do they automatically ping our dispatch to let them know that there's someone wandering off the reservation?
No, it does not automatically. The monitoring site would then notify us or law enforcement.
That's an additional model they've yet to develop, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Barb, can you just, really quick, contract services is going up $150,000. What's that attributed to?
And that's on which fund?
That's on, page D28. Community corrections grants.
That's likely due to, we had previously had some in-house services that we took care of. For example, the cognitive behavioral groups that are taken care of in the jail. Excuse me. We had previously been responsible for those and we've since contracted those out to an outside vendor to provide those for us. So the bulk of that is probably with that.
Can you just verify that? Because were we doing that previously, years ago, and we're going back to that, or?
Yes, we had, it was sort of a switch that we had made. We moved over to us doing it and now we're back to the vendor providing, but yeah, I can definitely verify that.
Okay. And then if we could also find out if it was bid out, if that service is going to be bid out, or just in comparison to what our cost was a couple years ago.
Yes, it was bid out last year, I believe.
It was, okay.
Yes.
Okay, seeing no other questions on page D28, D29. I think we are all set with community corrections. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Okay, next is emergency management. Brandon is here. Commissioners, you have an updated budget page that was given to you in regards to this. The revenue number, based on what was in the budget, is increased, so that's why this was primarily updated, I presume, Brandon, right?
Yeah.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, commissioners, and good afternoon. I'll go ahead and start with our general fund, which covers all of our legally mandated and core services in both emergency management and radio communications. There are not a lot of proposed changes from what finance initially proposed this year. I only asked for five line items to be changed, and I'll detail what each of those are for you just a little bit. And then everything else is what finance initially proposed. First of all, I asked that our budget for standby pay for technical services be increased from $25,000 to $38,900. The reason for that being is 25,000 was used as a placeholder in the budget for a very long time and had rolled over from year to year to year. With the increases we've received recently, cost of living and the classic comp study, I sat down and did the math and realized that our contractually obligated expenditures for those services were $38,900. So I asked that number be updated to reflect what we were actually going to spend, regardless of what the budget number was. That simply is what it is. We're requesting that the budget for small tools be increased by $1,000 from $3,500 to $4,500. And that's simply a product of the inflationary environment that we're in. It's specific to our technical services division, our radio guys. They're the guys that keep all of our public safety radios working and in good order. And they use a lot of small and disposable tools that some of them are one-time use. A lot of them break. I mean, you're thinking things like screwdrivers, hammers, small things like that. The cost of those items has simply gone up. We've not made any additional purchases this year above and beyond what we normally make, and we've already in 2023 expended our budget for that line item. So I asked for it to be increased to become more in line with what the market was showing. We're asking for a one-time increase in printing and reproduction on the emergency management side from $300 to $7,200, and that funding will be solely dedicated to another print run of our emergency preparedness, community preparedness guides that we give out to the community. And I know the commissioners give those out quite a bit through the commissioner's office. So we're making sure that we do another print run of those because those appear to be very, very popular amongst our residents and they seem to really like the information that's in there. So we want to make sure we have more of those available. And then we've requested a one-time increase in contracted services on the emergency management side from $5,000 to $19,000 for 2024. The county maintains a hazard mitigation plan, which we are required to update every 5 years, and that plan makes us eligible for any number of FEMA funding and grant programs, including our Homeland Security grant programs. So most of the work on that plan is being done in-house by emergency management staff, but there are some small items that we need to bring in third parties to assist us with, provide us with subject matter expertise, and so on. That's a very good value for us doing it in-house. Most of my counterparts do that externally and hire an external firm and tend to spend anywhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 to update that document every time it's due. And we're doing it in-house. So those are the 4 general fund increases we've asked for above and beyond finance proposed. One decrease that we asked for to help offset those is we asked that our vehicle gasoline budget be decreased from $7,500 to $6,200. That's a reflection of a couple things. Number one, more of our meetings are virtual and we don't have to travel quite as much. And also with us coming out of the pandemic, that changed how we have to use our vehicles on the technical services side. During the pandemic, we had to send vehicles home with technicians so that they could be on call 24/7 to resolve issues with our communications towers. Because COVID is hopefully past us now, we don't have to do that anymore. And the vehicles are remaining at technical services, and that has contributed to a noticeable decrease in our use of gasoline as a department. The total proposed general fund budget for emergency management for 2024 is an increase of $8,300 over 2023, or just over 0.3%. On the emergency management grant fund side, which was the supplement that each of you received just before the meeting.
Brandon, hold on, we're going to work on these.
Okay,
first, then
sure.
we'll get those. Commissioner Van Sickle. No? Your name's in front of me, Commissioner.
Is it? I'm not sure how.
Commissioner Hall.
Mine was on the emergency management grant fund side.
Grants?
So
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay. Any questions on pages C29, C30, Commissioners? Okay, we're done with those pages. Great budget there, Brandon.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to D6. Go
Okay,
ahead. Grants.
emergency management grant fund. So this is the one that you received the new supplement on just before the meeting. The reason for the new supplement and the increase in revenues and expenditures in that fund is that the original document that was sent over did not account for our 2022 grant award from the federal government. For those who remember me coming every year with our budget amendments for these, our grant, they're 3-year performance periods and they tend to run behind. So, well, they don't tend to, they do run behind. So we are currently in the process of expending our 2021 and 2022 federal awards, which have sunset dates in 2024 and 2025. Because we adopted the budget amendment for 2022 actually, I believe we adopted it after the initial budget was prepared. The 2024 budget for did not include any of the funding for the 2022 grant awards, which totals $4.6 million roughly. So that is the reason for the increase from I don't remember what was in the original document, to the $8 million in revenue and expenditures that you see in front of you. That $8 million includes all Homeland Security grant awards that we have currently outstanding. Because of the 3-year performance periods on those are budgeted to potentially all be spent down within calendar year 2024, although some of those expenditures could push into 2025, which would simply result in us ending up under budget in the 2024 fiscal year. There are 10 positions linked to the Emergency Management Grant Fund. That includes all of the positions that we need to meet our regional fiduciary responsibilities, all of the positions we need to meet federal Homeland Security program requirements, and the temporary staff that we've hired to conduct school safety assessments recently under our new program. Approximately 70% of the funding that we receive through the Homeland Security Grant Program is passed through to partner counties and other agencies as part of us fulfilling our regional fiduciary responsibilities. As you may recall, Macomb County is the regional fiduciary for all of Southeast Michigan. We handle the money and have pass-through requirements to our neighboring counties, which accounts for the roughly 70% or so that we pass through. And just a few examples of the programs that have been undertaken with the Homeland Security Grant Funds to make Macomb County more prepared to respond to terrorism incidents and other significant events are: we've recently purchased a significant amount of equipment to allow our local EMS agencies to respond adequately to active shooter events. We've made significant upgrades in our ability to detect hazardous materials through our hazardous materials response teams. We've made significant investments in training to respond to building and structural collapses. We've made significant investments partnering with the Sheriff's Office in the SRT and the dive teams. We've made several upgrades at our radio towers to make them more resilient against cyber attacks, because our county's public safety radio infrastructure is largely IP based at this point and has some of the same cybersecurity requirements as any other IP based program. So we're making investments there, and there are many other areas where we've done work in the past year and intend to do work going forward within those programs. But that's the general overview of the Homeland Security Grant Program, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. You guys went down a position, given
That's
like,
correct.
the grant money coming in. Is there a reason why?
So yes, there is. There was an administrative aid position that had been budgeted for years in the fund that was never filled. Those responsibilities were being fulfilled by others in the department. We simply decided to call that what it is and take the position off of the position census.
Okay, got it.
So that position had never been filled in my time as director. So in nearly 5 years, there'd never been an occupant of that position.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to again congratulate your team, Brian, during that tornado. Most of you may not know, he was on the golf course when that took place. Actually got in the cart and drove back to his car, dodging branches all the way to get to the scene. I know that because I was in the golf cart with him, so it was kind of scary. But on your supplemental you gave us, it shows for 2023 personnel at 2.3, and then it goes down to 955.
On I'm sorry, on the supplemental. Supplemental? Okay,
This one.
I didn't get a copy of it either.
Oh, yeah. Well, that makes it tough for you to explain, but
Somebody
that
could
was
let
a
me borrow an
monumental
extra
savings.
copy. Oh, thank you. All right, so on,
Personnel
Personnel.
expenditures.
so we go from 2,434,057 to 955.
And you lost one head count.
That's a great. That's a great question. I will need to follow up on that, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm sure Steve would have an answer if you asked him, but that's okay. We'll wait. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, well,
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Brandon, just a question on the grant funds. That's a lot of money, and I know that they're specifically earmarked for specific, what's the word I'm looking for?
Purposes.
Requirements.
Requirements. So has you ever been challenged on any of these that you have specifically set this money aside for, where they come back and say, wait a minute, that was not part of what this grant was for, and you had to return? Never.
no. We are very, very good and very, very diligent about making sure we work with our state and federal partners to make sure that what we're doing is approved beforehand, because these are reimbursement grants. So the one thing we don't want to do is put county dollars at jeopardy by spending them in a way that they would not be reimbursed. So we're very, very diligent in working with our partners to make sure that everything we're doing aligns with the requirements of the grant. I can't think of an issue in my time here that we've had.
So you seek approval before that grant money?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you, Chair. That's all I got.
Brandon, real quick, with your budget on like this year,
Mm-hmm.
are you trending to be at budget or below budget?
General fund or Homeland Security grant?
General fund.
I think we're trending to be a little under budget, but not much under budget.
Okay. When you're managing your budget on an annual basis, do you know when you're going to overspend it? Are you made aware of that by finance, or is that something where just keep?
So
doing within-
we have discussions about it, but I mean, I keep pretty good tabs on it internally as far as overspending, or if we're going to go over in a specific cost center, making sure that we do a budget adjustment to make sure that we get that funding, we get a budget adjustment approved, and so on.
Okay.
I think we've come in slightly under budget at least every year since I took over the department.
Well, actually, in 2022, you were over by 17.5. That's why I'm asking that question specifically.
In the general fund?
Yep. Now, I don't know if it's all general fund, or if it's consolidated with your grants, but it's 17,580. And there are not a lot of departments that go over their budget. There's only, there's a few. I mean, if it happens, it's not a large material number, but I was just asking that question specifically just in regards to, how do you know where you stand year to date on your budgets? But we don't need the answer today. If you can look into it and
Yeah,
get back
we'll
to
look
us,
into
that
that
would
and
be
get back
great.
to you, because that's,
Steve, I got a quick question for you. So, in regards to this budget, this grant fund, fund balance in this is $3.7 million negative.
Deferred
Shortfall,
inflows.
correct. So, is that considered a liability to the county?
It's on the books as in the liability section of the balance sheet. But then it will generally it'll reverse itself
When would it revert itself?
when we get the revenue in the following year, provided that we are beyond 60 days of collections for some odd reason in any particular year. If we have the same collection pattern, or the funding agencies have the same disbursement pattern, more or less, then we may have a negative every year. It may change as a result of, expenses and things like that. Or we've had situations in the past, not necessarily in this fund, where the state was behind. So one year we had deferred inflows, and then the next year they were within the 60-day rule. So we ended up recording 2 years of revenue on the books.
So if we know we're gonna be basically at zero, why do we forecast a loss every single year? Why wouldn't we just plug that with revenue?
In terms of
The fund balance,
the fund balance, and then
I mean, because we just
the
have,
plug.
we
So
have a
that's,
rolling,
in essence, book $11 million of budget, or budget $11 million of revenue.
and make the
in-
budget zero or make the fund balance zero. Because basically what you're
What we try to
forecasting here
do
is a
in the
loss
grant
every
funds,
year.
Commissioner, is set the budgeted revenue for the awards that we know are in that particular year, is how we try to budget. If we budgeted the deferred revenue, it sort of, from a historical perspective, could, or a term, it could skew things
Okay,
budgetarily.
okay.
This happens to be a fund that has a large deferred inflow amount.
Yeah, it's just the biggest one
Yeah,
I think
it's
we've
the,
seen
it's
so
the
far.
largest one.
Yep. Commissioner Brown. Thank you, Steve.
The interesting question you raised, Commissioner, that was,
I try, Commissioner.
no. Well, that's right, because it is that, Steve, is that, your answer, is that Gatsby rules require you to do it that way, or is that just a personal preference on the budget?
On the budget, that's the way we've historically done it, and it's a personal preference. We have to record the deferred inflow from an accounting perspective. How we budget it in the future, it's a personal preference. You could have things going all over the place if you are trying to budget deferred inflows in your
Now
projections.
it could get
You
skewed,
could be all over the place.
especially relying on the state of Michigan to pay us on time.
What's that?
We're waiting for certain payments to come in.
All depends on when we file for reimbursement, when the federal government is dispersing, if they're short-staffed, it could be all over the place. So what we try to do is budget, again, for the awards that we know of, for consistency purposes in the budget, trying to avoid spikes.
Are some of these, because the states, states October 1st, the states are on our cycle as well.
The
That's
state's
the-
on a September year end.
Yeah, that's what I
So
thought.
we have grants on September year ends, we have some on December year ends. We're trying to, at least from the accounting perspective, we're trying to get everything on one year end and account for it in one, in a calendar year. It's
I know that's been.
complicated.
Yeah, very much. Thank you. Are you expecting any more grants coming in this year? Have you applied for any money? Are you expecting any money coming in that you applied for that you're anticipating receiving this next year?
Nothing that's not accounted for in this budget at this time, but we're always looking.
Okay. Well, you'll be back with a budget amendment when it comes in, right?
We will be.
All right. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seeing no other questions for Brandon, I think we are good. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, next is the sheriff, and we have the sheriff here. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
So we'll start, obviously, let you go ahead and do your presentation, talk about anything that you like in regards to the department, and then we'll start off on budget pages in the general fund C57 through 60.
Okay. Well, with the budget that was presented to you, I'm very happy. We had a very modest request this year. We had to ask for some additional employee in training as it relates to our multi-jurisdictional SWAT team. Usually that year-end week-long training was covered by the local planning teams, but then now that's not an allowable expense. So we looked for a little additional funds there, some additional funding in law enforcement supplies to cover the new deputies that hopefully will be coming into the office. We needed to replace the motors on 3 of our vessels. We received that money. They're $90,000 a vessel to replace the motors. Our biggest expenditure, which is roughly about $2.8 million, will be over the next 5 years. We need to replace all of our body cameras, all of our in-car cameras. So we're working together currently with purchasing and IT to come up with an RFP, get that out onto the street so we could start that transition in 2024. And we received that money there. So when I look at it, with what we requested and what we didn't get, it was roughly about $57,400, which I am happy with, and I can work within that budget. So with that, I would entertain any questions.
Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
I was looking at the head count and going back to 2023, it was 501.5. I see 2024, it's 501.5. But back in 2021, actual was 532, which puts you 31 less than what you were back in 2021. Is that enough head count? I know I'm not asking, do you want more, because the answer would be yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at our internal records. I have 584 budgeted positions.
On page C59? By the way, I want to compliment you on your book again. It's always the best looking book out of any budget.
Thank you.
Probably including dispatch, because this is 501 in the general fund only.
Okay, you know what? You are correct. I got the dispatchers in my count.
I like to be correct.
You are. So let me subtract those dispatchers.
Okay, so that does what now?
So that's,
We'll take 584 minus 50, minus 72.5, yep.
Okay. So that is less dispatchers, is that what I heard? Or
No.
No, including dispatchers.
Yep, I believe, what was the year that we had additional? I think we reduced.
2021.
And remember, somewhere, I can't remember if it was 22 or 20, must have been 22, I'm gonna guess, we created the dispatch fund, so we moved those positions out of the general fund into the dispatch fund.
that's what's
Okay.
going on.
So that explains that.
I include them, but I know they're separate in the budget now. I've got to start remembering that.
But my point being is 2023, we're at 501.5 with the dispatchers, and it's 501. So that's the same head count from 2023 to 2024, less the dispatchers, which are moved into that account.
Exactly.
Last year, you explained that you were having tremendous difficulty hiring sheriffs. Are you more successful now?
Well, we are very successful as it relates to our corrections deputies. I mean, we are 5 short right now, and we still have a lot of people applying. Our dispatchers, we're 5 short currently right now, but we still have people applying. Obviously, the dispatch is a very tough job, you know, long training, and sometimes some of the people make it, some of them don't. We're still hurting in the deputy vacancy spot. So today we are 23 short.
Deputies?
Deputies, yes. So I have currently 5 in the police academy right now that will graduate in December. We did a new program that we took applications and we were going to sponsor people come January, which is kind of what we used to do, and most of the law enforcement agencies did. We received about 40 applications, and out of those 40, I think we have maybe 5 to 7 that will make it. So, I mean, we have people applying. Again, we are not going to lower the standards, but we're trying to get people. One of the concerns, I guess, I look at is times have changed. I have roughly the 72 dispatchers and, 180 some corrections deputies, all of which have an opportunity to go to the road and be promoted.
Don't want to.
And no one wants it. So when we ask the question, my jail captain says they all love working for her and they want to stay in the jail. So, I mean, I have big candidate pools, but again, I can't force people to go. So that's still our challenge, but at least on the correction side, I'm hoping by the end of the year, we're going to be full. And if we can get the dispatchers, we can hopefully by, June of next year, we can get the dispatchers full, trained. We've never been fully staffed in there since we started the consolidation back in 2013.
Without divulging any contract talks, we had talked, and then we had talked to Andrew, who was HR at the time, and we had talked to Mark Hackle at the time about trying to develop some incentives to get you guys more sheriffs, even with a pool of 20. It's systematic of the whole profession. Would
Exactly,
be the best way of putting it.
Again, every Wednesday we meet with the local chiefs and everybody's having the same problem and everybody's trying to steal the same candidates. So it's a very
100%.
interesting conversation on Wednesday mornings.
Well, the fact that you're optimistic about being at full staff by next year,
Well, I'm going to be very optimistic the jail will be filled by the end of the year, which is really, it gives me the opportunity to, make sure we're filling the jail. We're going to have, obviously, as we move forward with our jail project and things start shutting down, we're going to have additional staff to spend more time in the jail with the inmates. So we'll be able to move forward with that. Hopefully getting the dispatchers by mid-year fully staffed and basically trained is really what the goal is, where we don't have anybody in training. You can imagine whether it's our deputies, whether it's our corrections deputies or our dispatchers, each new person has to go through a training phase. And so, we're seeing a little bit of a burnout, especially on the road side. And I believe on the dispatch side that, the individuals are saying, look, I need a break for a couple months. I just want to get out there and do my job. I don't want to have to be responsible and train somebody new. So, that's one of our other challenges too.
I've seen your ads on social media. Who's ever doing those is doing a very good job.
I mean, we're getting the applications, but unfortunately, when we start digging deeper,
Yeah.
it's
I
things.
know in Roseville, they had some background checks issues and then physical issues and then mental issues. So they kind of got caught in the same boat. So thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. How's the dispatch training center you guys opened up a few years ago? Commissioner Romano and I went there and looked at it when it was opened up. Is that working out all right?
Yeah, it's greatly a benefit because it's putting, new dispatchers into a test environment where, if they make a mistake, it's not going to be a life or death mistake. It gives them that ability to learn what the job's going to be and give them the confidence that when we put them on the floor, that, they're going to pick up that phone or they're going to be able to dispatch and have confidence. I'm sure Angela could talk a little bit
A lot
more.
of the commissioners have went through Comtech and they see all the dispatchers in action live, but I don't know if they all know the fact that there's a side center there that they train them in. It was really a good thing you started.
It was an excellent thing.
A few years ago, but, another question, the engines you guys are pulling from the boats, you see, you're pulling 3 engines.
3 boats, 2 engines a boat.
What are you doing with the engines? What are you doing with the ones you pull? Are you gonna give those, put them into auction or sell them?
Yeah,
Or
we'll talk to the county about what if they want to put them in the auction. I don't know past their life cycle, but I'm sure somebody would want them there. Just like our vehicles, they go to the auction, so.
I mean, some of it probably want, I don't know how many hours are on them, but probably quite a bit.
There's a lot, and they're run hard.
They got oars on the boat, so for a reason. But going back, and that relates to another question I've got. Repairs and maintenance is down significantly from last year's budget number. Why is that? Is that because you got a new fleet of cars in that you don't have to maintain as many of them? I'm not
Yeah,
sure I
we
understand.
we bring it as soon as we can put in an order, and obviously Nicole's here and she works with our staff, so we get additional vehicles, we bring them up to date.
It was 774 last year, and it's 471 projected for next year, so it's quite a drop off. So I was wondering what accounts for that?
He may have taken some money from me, let me find out.
You could have said better drivers, Tony.
I wish I could, I can't.
So
Crash bangs, smash them up, it's happening.
Maintenance agreements, I think we moved the Tyler cost over to the IT budget.
What's that?
I'll verify that. They have a Tyler system, right?
Our computer-aided dispatch, our records management system.
I think we moved the maintenance cost to the IT budget.
Oh, okay. Very good. That
I'll
explains it.
confirm that.
All right.
It's all those nuances.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was curious, when we start to do demolition on some sections of the current jail in preparation for the new intake center, will that take additional staff to keep those areas secure?
No, we're working with the company, and we're working with our architects, and again, obviously, not obviously, I think within the next few weeks, there'll be a presentation on hiring a construction manager. Again, we're working with all of that, and there is a plan that when a section comes down, it's not gonna affect our operation inside, it'll be secured, and staffing will be taken care of from the inside.
Good to hear. My other question is replacing all the body and vehicle cameras. Why is that?
Our body cameras are over 5 years old. They're just gone, outdated. The maintenance agreements are costly. The ability to replace it is costly. When you do body cameras and you do in-car cameras, currently we use a WatchGuard product, so they're in sync. So the in-car cameras need to be replaced. So if we go with a different vendor, we are going to need to replace. But basically, they've been around for a long time, and they're starting to malfunction, and it'd just be better for us to move to all brand new ones.
Okay. As with Chair Brown's question, is that equipment sold off or part of the purchase agreement of the new equipment to return it, or?
I don't think anybody's going to want old equipment, in-car equipment, or body cameras. I don't think so.
Okay, see no value in it.
I see no value in it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Tony, in regards to your reimbursements for this year, it looks like it's going up about $1 million. What's that specifically for?
And I apologize, I didn't. What's that? What page, Commissioner?
C57, it's the reimbursements line.
We would have, again, I'll have to talk to Steve. I know we still do the jail reimbursement program where we try and recoup some of the cost. But, with a lower population, a more violent population, trying to get money from these individuals is pretty tough, though we still pursue and try and garnish wages if they're gainfully employed. But we're gonna, okay.
We'll look into it, Commissioner. What I'm gonna tell you off the top of my head, when I look at this, is that we may have a classification issue between reimbursements and charges for services. So charges for services is where the patrol contract revenue goes. You'll see that actually is going down, but it should be going up a minimum of 6% to match the wage increases. So I think we might have some patrol revenue.
You're stealing my thunder. That was my next question.
So I think there was a mismatch, but I don't know that. I have to confirm that.
Oh, that's fine. So Commissioner Hall asked about employee counts. I know obviously we took the 911, the dispatchers out, and then last year increased the budget by about 25 employees. Primarily, the vast majority it's in the jail. It was like 20 FTEs that were in the jail from 22 to 23. Looking at just like numbers here, because when I look at page C60, your expenditures by service, you don't have any of this, do you? This is maybe more of a question for Steve.
I think if we, and again, ask the question first, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm looking at the largest increase in your budget is the jail, obviously. Totally makes sense. That change from this year to next year is slotted at about $8 million increase. I'm sorry, $6 million increase. Is that all primarily to the 20 FTEs for says your professional support specific to the jail? Is that where all that additional expense is from? And if so, have all those positions been filled?
Thank you.
I remember last year I think we got additional 10 corrections deputies. But we eliminated, I think it was 15 road patrol deputies.
Yeah, we moved them around.
We moved them around
Yeah.
because we're doing more with
Right.
the transportation isn't as heavy as it used to be.
So I'm looking at that line. So like in 2022, we had 211.5, and then this year we have 232. That's what was in the budget. So that it's basically
Then we
20,
had the grant.
20 FTEs. And I'm just wondering, with those 20 FTEs, have we filled all those positions?
All but 5.
All but 5?
Yep, we're currently 5 short in the jail.
So 5 short, okay. And then going back to the jail operations, looking at your handout here. So total inmates booked, is that the same as the daily population data, or are those two separate items on this page of the?
Yeah. What was the question again? I'm sorry, Steve, was in my ear.
Just in regards to the population in the jail, because you said earlier that
Yeah.
population is going to be increasing this year.
Yeah, we're just over 800 and some today.
Okay.
The number of inmates booked is the number of individuals that come through the system that are processed, are fingerprinted, are changed out, are in the system. So whether they're there for 15 minutes or over a year, we count that statistic.
So it would be then part of the data, the daily population data, this
Yeah.
chart?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously that's why it's fluctuating too,
Right.
based on, you have your high, low, and average, obviously, based on your population. Okay. So we have 5 vacancies there. I know we've been trying to do incentives for the other, for the actual, and the recruiting side, we heard good news that you've got about 20, I think, that are going through the process, or we're hiring new deputies.
Yeah, we'll be, again, the sponsorship, which we would do, we would hire you, send you to the police academy, and then upon successful completion of the academy and passing the licensing exam, then you become a full-time employee. But while you're in the academy, I think we have it worked out where they would be part-time employees or full-time employee recruits, and they would be receiving some compensation for the individuals. But again, 40 applications, and we got about, I think, 7 that hopefully I'll be able to send in January, along with whatever current staff I have that wants to go to the police academy. They have to pass the 2 examinations, the physical agility and the reading and writing test, and I will send them. I was hoping to have like 30 or 40 to send. Get it all done, but.
Okay. One other question here, just in regards of the items in the jail on the capital improvement side, between jail door intercom system and key scan panel replacements and all these things. I know as we build, the new intake center, is this gonna be an issue with that as we get new technologies there and you're trying to replace old technologies?
So again, part of our meetings that we've been having, that we're already communicating that, again, that's gonna be really important for our construction manager to come together. They are looking at when they're gonna bid out the new facility, which is very easy to work on, right? It's new. than going into the old facility and fixing up and retrofitting it, or making sure that it's all done seamlessly and that the two systems, that everything is upgraded, talks together, works together. And so we don't have a new facility and then trying to fix something.
Got it.
And they
Commissioner
think it-
Brown.
I'm sorry, they think also that it would help us out as getting contractors to come in and work. Obviously, you've seen some of the things that come through here, the bids, and you only have one bidder that wants to work in the old facility. So
Exactly.
mirror the two together and hopefully
Should
we'll
hopefully
get,
increase that.
yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Those booking numbers, are those unique persons that are booked, or are those every time they're booked?
That isn't every time they're booked.
So there
So
could be,
if you
there
have
could be
some-
routine, if there could be, people coming back to the inn more than once on that number. Do
But-
you track, do you got them cataloged as repeat offender, repeat visitors? I mean, can you track, because we're talking about diverting people eventually sometime, and it'd be nice to know how many people are coming and going and how many people are multiple.
Right.
Just have the.
I mean, we would be able to capture that, through our system, but when you look at it, it's, if you're arrested and then you bond out, I'm just gonna say the next day or two, and then you have your court case, and then you get sentenced to 30 days, you're coming back in and being processed. So, that's counting as two processes. Our staff is booking those individuals. We also have individuals that are incarcerated that go out on writs. So they'll leave the facility, go to another facility and handle a court case in another county, and then come back in. So that is another process where we capture, the time that we have to spend, searching, fingerprinting, putting them back in the system.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing no other questions on pages C57 through C60 for the capital improvement fund items. We're gonna move on to special revenue pages D19 and 20. Are there any questions there, commissioners? This is the grants, Tony. Seeing no questions there. Only question I have, Tony, is the SET state grant. I guess we lost that one from 1.4 million to $115,000.
Where is that one at, Commissioner?
It's on page D20.
20. Set.
Yeah, we had, this year, we have almost 1.4 million there. Expenditures.
That's forfeiture money,
Okay.
so.
So that's, it's part of your supplies and services line item specifically?
I would have to look into that. I see that they're budgeting.
Yeah, so on your page D19, your supplies and services, basically, I don't know if that's an error, but it's almost 1.4 million, and then this year it's 74,000.
Oh, you want to slide in there?
Yeah, please. So what's happening there, Commissioner, is they're budgeting basically a drawdown of their fund balance. Whereas in future years, they're budgeting expenditures equal to their revenues, more or less. Now, whether they'll spend that entire fund balance down in '23, I don't know how much that you've spent this year, or how much the sheriff's department spent through today out of that fund balance, but that's what's happening. They're drawing down or budgeting to draw down the entire fund balance.
So what did we have budgeted in the 1.4 million that we were going to spend it on for this year?
I'll follow back with you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, seeing no other questions on page D19 or 20. Move to page D50 and 51. Commissioner Brown?
Secondary road patrol, how many cars are out there now active?
Secondary road patrol, our traffic grant, there's one sergeant, 4 deputies.
Okay, all right. And the strategic traffic enforcement, the OSP, the alcohol unit, that's down a little bit too. Did you do some grant money there? Is that?
No, I believe that's money that comes in from OHSP. We run the grant and give it to the different departments.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tony. Sheriff, thank you.
It's fine.
Okay, seeing no other questions on these pages, I think you're done. Angela is
Now you get the
patiently waiting.
You get the rock star now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, next is the E911 Sheriff Dispatch Budget, D21 and 22. And Angela is presenting this one.
Good afternoon. I think I'm good. Yeah, thank you. All right, well, good afternoon, commissioners. The E911 Fund plays a crucial role in supporting local communities by managing the allocation of both state and local E911 revenue. Additionally, it facilitates dispatch services for the general county and local communities, utilizing funds from both the general fund and service contracts with partnering communities. In the fiscal year 24, we anticipate a total revenue of $8,940,400. This encompasses projected collections from the local E911 surcharge distribution, state surcharge collection, service contracts, and reimbursements from communities for expenses related to maintenance costs and our shared software solutions. You will notice a notable increase in expenditures, particularly in specific cost categories. Firstly, there's an uptick in repairs and maintenance expenses. This is directly related to the sheriff's decrease. This adjustment is due to the relocation of the annual maintenance invoice for the Tyler Technologies contract, moving it from the general fund to E911. The Tyler Tech agreement, recently renewed by board approval, amounts to an annual expense of $356,448. This decision was motivated by the fact that E911 is the designated source for all new equipment, software purchases related to the dispatch services we provide in collaboration with our other law enforcement and fire service partners. So by consolidating all of the expenses related to the Tyler Technology agreement into one fund org, we just aim to simplify the management and the oversight of that specific agreement and related expenses. This line item also covers the annual maintenance for the additional non-Tyler software solutions and contracts with vendors that we have in our dispatch center. The cost for contract services also has an increase from last year. This is specifically representing the remaining balance of our contract with Mission Critical Partners for Next Generation 911 Consulting, which totals $176,000, which is remaining for 2024. Capital outlay encompasses expenses for necessary replacements for monitors, essential office and center furniture, and hardware for the phone system and other related equipment. Additionally, there's an increase in transfers in from the general fund. Historically, the general fund contribution has only covered the 19 budgeted county-funded dispatch positions. with related expenses accounted for those accordingly. However, again, with the recent shift of the Tyler maintenance expenses to E911, the sheriff's office will now contribute their portion of that invoice in the amount of $228,000 towards the total Tyler bill. The $176,000 from the general fund for that next generation 911 consultant contract is also factored into the transfers in. The remainder of the Tyler contract expenses are collected from our contracted communities and reflected in revenue reimbursements, as previously mentioned. And transfers out encompasses the total annual cost for maintenance and services unrelated to the Tyler Technologies bill, which IT manages. This includes a reimbursement to the general fund for all expenses associated with our fire department's equipment maintenance, as well as the continued funding of a salaried GIS or mapping data, but a GIS services position that's funded by E911. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Great job, Angela.
Thank you.
$2 million in other revenue. What is that specifically for?
That is the sheriff's office collection of the local E911 surcharge.
And then your repairs and maintenance goes up about 400,000. What's that specifically for again?
That is specifically for the Tyler Technologies contract.
Steve, quick question for you. As this fund increases, I know the board is moving forward, and in regards to the actual fund itself, it's increased in almost $10 million in a couple years. If the fund is healthy and has enough revenue in it, why do we have to continue to keep transferring general fund dollars into it?
So what, we're setting money aside for future equipment upgrades is what really we're trying to build fund balance for. So the general fund transfer is representative of the cost of the non-contracted dispatchers that used to be in the general fund.
Okay, so if that's the case, wouldn't those capital expenditures be in the capital improvement plan specifically, not in the operating budget?
What would end up happening is we could account for them here, or we'd have a transfer out of this fund to the capital improvement fund.
Okay.
It's, there's nothing on the capital plan at this point in time.
Okay. I'm just, because if there's nothing there and we're building it up, I mean.
Right, it's intended for
theoretically-
capital, it's more intended for capital in the future.
Okay. I'm just saying that because, you know, if there was a need for $3 million for whatever those
Right.
assets would be, it's not like we don't have a healthy fund balance to make a transfer, but we're just anticipating to transfer money in here, but we don't know what we're going to be transferring the money for. It's kind of my thought process. If we don't have a plan, what's the reason for budgeting it?
Yeah. Well, we know what for, we just don't have costs associated to those yet. So we will be bringing a completely new phone system contract in front of the board, hopefully December.
Okay.
And so there's a significant cost included with that. We're trying to work on a cost sharing agreement with some of the other dispatch centers as well to share some of those licenses, but it would be one contract. So the overall expense of that would be greater, but we'd, collect that through reimbursements. There's also going to be a need to replace most, if not all, of our dispatch consoles, the actual workstations. They are now 10 years old. They're most of it is out of warranty. Some of the electrical's going, so there's a need. So, but right now we're just trying to get through some of the existing renovations in Comtech and work out some of the decisions between the PSAPs to choose a specific path to take with different capital projects, and we can have a better idea of those specific costs.
Okay. Commissioner Brown?
These wouldn't be expenses in the capital fund. We don't have them, those future expenses in the capital fund as we do with other departments.
They're not on the capital plan today. once we get to the point of needing to replace those and getting, estimates, then we'd put that on the capital plan in some future year. Then it'd be reflected in here as a transfer.
But it sounds like she's got stuff that's coming pretty quick, like those.
We can take a look at that.
Okay.
We don't have any dollars for those, so we could update the capital plan, I suppose, if we know dollars
Right,
and dates, more specifically about years.
which we don't yet. We're still
Right,
negotiating prices
exactly.
for things,
So-
yeah.
So this is basically the capital fund for that department.
Intended to build fund balance, yes, for capital improvements in the future. Is really the goal of the 42 cents is to build capital as well as fund other operating cost maintenance agreements and that sort of thing on those systems and those equipment.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Angela, one last question. The contract services for 176,000, what was that again for? Sorry.
That is a contract we have with Mission Critical Partners for consulting and leading us through our migration to the new 911 network. The board approved a budget amendment of 102,000 in June of this year for the first part of the general fund contribution, and the remaining general fund contribution of the original agreement of the cost sharing between E911 money and general fund is 176. So.
Okay. Seeing no other questions on E911. We're all set.
Okay, thank you. That was easy today.
Get through this one pretty quick.
And for a change, right?
Well, Commissioner Kraft isn't here, so he has a lot of questions. Okay, we have a motion to receive and file items 6A through 6D. Please vote. Thank you, everybody.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, next is public participation. This is the opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Would anyone like to address the board under public participation? Going once, twice. We'll close public participation. Commissioner comments. Got a quiet group today. Okay, we'll move on to
Motion to adjourn.
made by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Wallace. Please vote. See everybody tomorrow.